Welcome, everybody. I'm Sasha. I'm the chair of the Elections Commission. I will be your moderator for tonight's debate. Student Senate represents every student at the University of Kansas. We fund over $24 million in student fees to various services across the university. Tonight, you are going to hear from your presidential candidates and vice presidential candidates to represent the student body. The coalitions have requested walk-on songs. Your candidates for student body president, first, from Ad Astra, Charlie Stevenson and Ava Garcia. Next up, from Crimson and Blue, Shay Mari and Amara and Mudisi. All right. The rules for tonight are simple. Questions will be directed to the candidates and they will have 1.5 minutes to answer. If they go over, I will gavel them down. If a candidate references another coalition while speaking, the other coalition can request a 1-minute rebuttal. I ask that the audience please withhold their applause until the end of the debate to make this go smoothly. I will also gavel you down. During the debate, there will be this QR code in the corner of the screen. You can submit questions that you have for the candidates, and at the end, I will review them and ask anything that comes up frequently to the candidates. We'll start off with opening statements. Ad Astra won the coin flip and chose to go first. Crimson and Blue will have the last word at the conclusion of the debate. Each presidential candidate gets 2.5 minutes to introduce themselves, their coalition, and their platform, and then in the same order, the vice presidential candidates will get 2.5 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you, and good evening, everyone who's with us here tonight, and everyone joining us online. My name is Charlie Stevenson, and I am running to be your next student body president, alongside my running mate, Ava Garcia, for the Ad Astra Coalition. We are running because we believe KU deserves student government that is open, engaged, and focused on delivering tangible results. Student government should not feel distant or disconnected from the students it represents. It should work to improve campus life in visible, meaningful ways while also making students feel heard and included in the process. That is why our campaign is built around 3 priorities. I'll briefly speak on our plan to expand and modernize the Student Rec Center, and Ava will discuss our plan to strengthen student engagement and create smarter student support systems. Together, these priorities are about making KU stronger, more connected, and better prepared for the future. Our rec center is one of the most important shared spaces on campus, with over 1,000 daily average participants. Its current state no longer reflects the size, needs, or expectations of the KU community. Compared to our peers in the Big 12, we rank 13th in dedicated rec fee, 14th in operating budget, and dead last in square footage. We believe students deserve a facility that better supports health, wellness, and campus life, and we want to work towards a plan that makes that possible in a reasonable way. Over the past year, I've had the opportunity to serve as Student Senate Treasurer, and that experience has shown me both what Student Senate can accomplish and where it still has room to improve. I've seen what works, where students feel left out, and where more thoughtful, effective leadership can make a real difference. Ava and I know KU is made up of students with vastly different backgrounds, priorities, and experiences. Good leadership is not about representing only the most involved students or those with the loudest voices. Good leadership is about building a student government that feels relevant and responsive to the entire student body. We're incredibly proud and grateful to be here tonight, and we're excited for the opportunity to earn your trust. Thank you, and rock chalk.
Ad Astra. Or Crimson and Blue. I'm sorry.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Shay Murney, and I am a junior at the University of Kansas studying poli-sci and global studies, and I am running as the presidential candidate for Crimson and Blue. A little background on me, I have been involved in Senate for 3 years, and this 3 years of experience has made me aware of faults in current presidencies, current and past. And that fault is that current and past presidencies, have struggled to get connected and make a noticeable difference on the lives of average students in the student body. We make a difference on the people that are most involved, the most in tuned in campus, yet we leave kids and other students on the wayside. And that is what ultimately inspired this coalition. So, to make a noticeable and positive difference on this campus, we have three platforms. The first is Campus Life. We're planning to establish a 24/7 coffee shop in the underground so late night studiers have somewhere to go that's not the library like Anschutz or Watson. Then we have infrastructure where we plan to implement food plan scholarships to actually benefit the students who do not have time to be involved or have influence over this campus. We want students who work and who struggle to have a student government that represents them to the best of our ability. And lastly, we have campus safety, where we plan to create a new channel of funding for the Safe Ride program, partnered with the local government, as well as increase student parking, which we are sure we can do next year. We are thankful for the privilege to be on this stage today in front of you all, and we are excited to see what this campaign brings. Thank you, and Rock Chalk.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ava Garcia. I'm a junior here at KU studying exercise science with a minor in business, and I'm running for student body vice president alongside Charlie. I'm grateful to be here tonight and grateful for you all to be here as well. For me, I see leadership as a responsibility. If you recognize something could be better, it's on you to step up and move forward and be a part of improving it. For me, that starts with communication. A lot of people don't know what's happening, how decisions are made, or how it will affect their daily life. And that's not because students don't care. It's because the system isn't always built in a way that's easy to stay informed and involved. I believe it shouldn't be on the students to go out of their way to understand what the student government is doing. It should be on us to reach out to them, meet them where they're at, and make them feel represented. We want to change this by taking a proactive approach to communication through the creation of a digital student resource hub. This will give the student body easy access to resources like our governing documents and the agendas for upcoming meetings, as well as giving us a platform where we can publish polls to better understand student opinions ahead of major decisions. When engagement improves, trust improves. And when trust improves, transparency and accountability follow. But communication isn't about sending out more updates. It's also about making information easier to access in the first place. This is where innovation comes in. We want KU to think more seriously and strategically about how it's using its tools it already has to support its students. One example is the JBot AI. Whether people like it or not, AI is becoming a part of the world students step into after graduation. KU has the opportunity to use this tool in a way that actually helps the students, making it easier to find information, navigate resources, and save time. At the same time, it's about making sure the university is preparing students for the future, not falling behind it. This will be my first year directly involved in Student Senate, and I see that as a strength. I bring in a new perspective, and I'm able to think about what's best for the entire student body, not just one part of it. At the same time, Charlie brings in experience from within the Student Senate. Together, we will be able to combine those perspectives to create a balanced and effective approach to leadership. As a campaign, our priorities are focused on things students will actually feel: improving and expanding the Student Rec Center, making communication and transparency real and consistent, and building smarter, more accessible student support systems. We are here tonight because we care about this campus and the people in it. I want students to feel more connected, more informed, and more confident in the leadership that's representing them. Thank you, and I'm excited for tonight's conversation.
Hey guys, my name is Amara Ndubisi, and I'm the vice presidential candidate of the Crimson and Blue Coalition. I'm a sophomore originally from Olathe, Kansas, studying psychology and criminal justice with high hopes of furthering my education through law school. I am so honored to be here in front of you all and truly grateful you have given Shay and I this platform to show how much we care for you and the university. The Crimson and Blue Coalition does not just want to sponsor the interests of us alone, but every student. Whether your time at KU is coming to a close or you have plenty of time left, we want you to know that this chapter of your story is the most important, and Shay and I will make sure it is worth telling for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. And as a reminder to the audience, as we get into questions, withhold your applause. First, for Crimson and Blue, one part of your platform is stabilizing Safe Ride. Administration used to fund recycling as part of Safe Ride. They cut both. These services are now funded on fee, which is constrained by the Board of Regents. How do you stabilize Safe Ride without charging students?
Oh, can you hear me now? Nods. Perfect. Okay, so what our Safe Ride platform looks like is the Lawrence local government has a program called Rideshare, which is basically Safe Ride for the Lawrence community. But Rideshare doesn't get that many active participants, and Safe Ride needs more funding. So we plan to work with the local government to combine these two programs, consolidate the power, so that the Lawrence government can at least fund a side of Safe Ride. So say the fee committee decides to completely cut Safe Ride at some point, which we hope won't happen, it still has backup reservations so that it can fully function for a year or two without the funding until it gets back on the ropes.
At Astra, one of your major policies for promoting collaboration is creating a Canvas tile for Student Senate open to every student. The last 3 Ad Astra administrations have tried to implement a Canvas tile for student resources with no success. Why do you anticipate a less broadly relevant tile will be approved?
A lot of the arguments against having a Canvas page in the past has been using the argument of saying if Student Senate were to get one, then everyone is going to try to get one, which is not really viable. Our plan is to incorporate all the different aspects of other institutions and organizations who may want a Canvas page and offer those resources to students and combine those together into one to dispel that argument of having too many Canvas pages and consolidate it all into one digital student resource hub.
This next question is for both coalitions. You may indicate who wants to speak first, and then I'll call on you. When the Gateway District was announced, KU said it would be funded by athletics debt, donations, and state funds. The STAR bond passed by the City Commission authorized a 2% tax on every purchase made on campus to be directed towards the Gateway District. It is projected that the average student will work an additional 4 hours a year to finance this $96 million bond. Now that students are directly financing the Gateway District, what oversight will your administration advocate for regarding the project? Charlie?
Understand what power the student body president and vice president really have. Right now, we couldn't just go out and try to get that tax removed, and that's just not a viable path. But what I think is important is involving student voices in those conversations. Student Senate and student government in general had a good relationship with athletics until about 5 or 6 years ago. I want to have conversations with those in athletics to get the student voice back into those conversations so that I can effectively advocate for the student body.
As one of the core tenets of our platforms is to help underprivileged students and students who are actively having financial troubles, it is a giant priority for us to make sure that they don't get taxed to such a egregious extent without accurate representation. So as with the other coalition, we plan to work with both admin and athletics to make sure that this representation happens so that the students aren't getting taxed for projects that do not benefit them.
In 1975, Student Senate had a standing picnic and softball game against the university administration. How will your coalition foster a collaborative relationship with the administrators at every level of the university, not just the chancellor and the provost? Crimson and Blue.
One of our core tenets also is to establish an end of the year festival for KU, which is a place where clubs aren't just simply campaigning to get more people or trying to show off what they do so people join. We want a place where the club, Student Senate and all clubs can communicate and have fun at the community level with food trucks, a festival, everything, so that they can, instead of try to get more recruits and get more people for their club, they can show off what they've done, have fun, play games with other clubs, and actively enjoy what they're doing instead of trying to continually promote I guess, their survival. We want a different reason for clubs to exist rather than just getting more members.
What I plan to do if I were to be elected is to have a conversation with every vice provost. I think that it's not necessarily the administration trying to actively hurt students or go against their interests. I think it's just the fact of them having a lot on their plate already, and the student body necessarily might not be top of mind. I think that having those meetings will get us back to the top of the mind and into those conversations. And additionally, there's an aspect of my work with the current administration and having those relationships and having some continuity there so that we're able to have more impactful conversations earlier.
Will either coalition bring back the softball game? About 10% of KU students are Missouri residents. The Kansas-Missouri Reciprocal Tuition Agreement only extends to architectural, fine arts, and industrial design programs. How will your administration advocate for Missouri students enrolled outside of these programs, many of whom live barely an hour away from KU, but are straddled with the full cost of out-of-state tuition? Ad Astra?
This isn't necessarily something that I know the answer to, and I don't want to pretend that I do. But what I will do is have conversations with those who have the ability to make those changes. I know that Arkansas is one school that allows for in-state tuition from outside states like Kansas or Missouri. And I think that that is a system that we should look closer into. Why certain schools offer in-state tuition for Missouri residents and others not, I don't know the answer to. But what I can do is have conversations with those who do know the answers and have the ability to make those changes.
Like Charlie said, we have a reciprocal in-state tuition for states like Arkansas and Illinois. But for some reason, we do not have one of those with Missouri. And part of that is to do with intrastate rivalry and things at the state legislative level. Our coalition has ties with the state legislative level, and we can start to make those differences by collaborating with admin, KBOR, and the state legislators. And we will plan to do that if that becomes a thing that the student body is asking for.
At the national level, we have seen cuts to research funding. At the state level, restrictions on cultural and diversity programs. The executive branch represents students in initiatives of the Kansas Board of Regents and at the state and national government. What will your administration advocate for in front of these bodies? Crimson and Blue.
In front of these bodies, it has been a giant, especially with the state legislature, we have had a giant conversation going on for the past legislative session surrounding things like research funding, financial aid, and everything that affects both graduate and undergraduate students alike. As we said, on the state level, we have a lot of sway, especially with our local legislators in the Olathe and the Douglas districts, alongside the Shawnee. With those sways, we can start to make a difference if we use those connections correctly. And that is what we plan to do. When it comes to DC, we have an annual conference that we go and advocate for student issues where we will plan to put research funding and financial aid funding on our docket so that people can know the issues we stand for and we can stand for the student body in its entirety.
I think being an R1 institution is incredibly important at the Kansas Board of Regents level and Kansas legislature level. That gives us a lot of sway and impact in these conversations that other Kansas universities simply don't have. Now, I think keeping us there is incredibly important, but to keep us there, we have to have these conversations. I think that I'm unsure of every question that the student body has and everything they want me to advocate for. But through resources like a digital student resource hub, we have the ability to get an understanding of what the student body wants us to advocate for on their behalf and continue to do the best we can for students.
We're now going to move into questions for the vice presidential candidates. First, for Ad Astra, KU lacks clear AI governance on privacy, ethics, research, and academic use. Why have you chosen to focus on developing JBot before addressing the existing issues of AI integration on campus?
I think that a lot of the times AI is used in the wrong setting. And so we need to educate our students on how to properly use it. And that would be with the development of this JI AI bot. We're giving them the resources that encourage proper use of AI and things that will help them get to where they need to go instead of having to use and other outsourced AI that does not know necessarily much about our campus or what we encourage our students to and to do not do. And so we've chosen to focus on the development of it because it will help within our students in showing them what's right and what's wrong and how to properly use AI, because it is inevitable that they'll see it when they graduate and take that next step outside of KU.
Crimson and Blue. Pharmacy senators tried to bring back the Mortar and Pestle Cafe during lunch hours, but dining refused since the area didn't get enough traffic. Hawk's Nest lasted a year and then was closed. We already have coffee vending machines across campus. What makes a late night coffee shop different?
So, what I think makes a late night coffee shop different is one, the location where we're trying to do it in the underground. I think, at least when I study at Anschutz, there are so many people who are studying there and always coming in and out. I think having a coffee shop that's right near there will be convenient for a lot of students. And then also, I think how we'll be able to convince dining that this is something necessary that students need is using student voices to show them that this is something that's a necessity. I think that if we show them that students are asking for this and students want this, then whether they decide to move forward with that or not is obviously up to them. But I think our platform is using student voices, so that is what we can do.
Next, for both coalitions, in recent years, Student Senate has adopted programs previously funded at the university level, like recycling, passing along the cost to students since administration refuses to pay. What is the role of administrative cost sharing in making KU more environmentally friendly? Ad Astra.
Currently, KU only has recycling in academic buildings. So I think expanding that to non-academic buildings like the Union, libraries, and any other building on campus that is non-academic will help improve the environment and making it more environmentally friendly. A lot of these things, sometimes the cost doesn't necessarily increase. It can help us in a way. We can get a higher return from it if we increase the amount of recycling we put in various non-academic buildings.
So I think the role of administrative cost sharing is so that it's easier to expand these resources that we have. I think that if we're relying on student fee alone, then we're asking students to carry a lot of the burden of things that either they're not benefiting from or that should be an administrative cost. So I think that things like recycling, for example, this year when they came asking for um, funding for their organization, that is something that also the university could fund so that students aren't having to fund their recycling.
Many students with religious and dietary restrictions find accommodations on campus to be either non-existent or cost prohibitive. Student Senate doesn't have direct oversight over dining, but has the ability to make recommendations to the administrators overseeing the program. How will you make campus dining more accessible to students with dietary restrictions? Ad Astra. Or, pardon. I keep mixing up the coalitions, Crimson and Blue.
Fine. So we've actually gotten a lot of requests for more vegan dining options or options for students who need halal options who are Muslim. So I think that working with dining to show them that students who are paying for a 2,000 plus dining plan need to have accessible options of food. I think it's ridiculous to ask them to pay for something where they won't be able to eat the food that is being offered to them. And I think it's necessary to have accessible options, whether they think it's necessary or not. And I think working with campus dining to show them that there are a large majority of students who have these dietary restrictions is a way to get things moving forward and having these implementations put in place.
Like Charlie said earlier, meeting with administration, meeting with the right people to create resolutions, to create fixes to these problems, seeing that it is a student problem, listening to their needs and what they would like. This creates another relationship between not only the administration, but us and the students, being able to take these student issues to places and have resolutions for them and get problems fixed quickly and efficiently. I think is important, and making sure that everyone feels included and heard and advocated for.
University Senate is the joint body between staff, faculty, and students that determines classroom policies. The Vice President oversees student representation on University Senate. What will your priorities be in this role?
Like I said earlier, this will be my first year directly involved with Student Senate. I chose to run with Charlie because I'm just your typical student. I just go to class every day. I'm just STEM major, nothing honestly too exciting about me. But I do believe that it's important to see this as a role and bridge the gap between student government, the body that represents them, and the administration. I feel like oftentimes there's a gap that people feel disconnected. I felt disconnected before I got here, and I want to bridge that gap to make sure that students feel represented. And so I think that student representation in the University Senate and prioritizing this role is important because students are what make up this campus. The professors and the administration do as well, but students have a voice, and it is their 4 years here or more. And it's important to prioritize their needs and what they want. And I think having just your typical average view of a KU student is important and will really play a vital role in this position.
The main thing that I will advocate for in the University Senate is taking student concerns on a base level and getting them in front of administrative ears. I think that's the most necessary use of the University Senate, and the reason why we have it is to kind of connect staff, faculty, and the Student Senate together so that we're all hearing each other's concerns and able to work together to solve them.
Next, we're going to move into a section for media questions. Each paper funded by the Student Senate has been given an opportunity to ask a question. This will also be your last chance during these free questions to submit a question at the QR code above. So make sure you take advantage of that. Firstly, from the University Daily Kansan, would you like to come up? The University Daily Kansan asks, how do you plan to prioritize transparency and increase student engagement?
This is one of our platforms. I'm going to once again reference the Digital Student Resource Hub. This increases transparency because of the resources that are on there. Our governing documents, agendas before upcoming meetings, so that we're now taking a proactive approach compared to the reactive approach Senate's been taking for the past several years. Now, when it comes to engagement will come from student responses to polls that will be posted much more regularly. Ahead of required student fee review this year, we had a poll that was published, and we had over 2,000 student responses. That engagement shows that students want to have their voice represented and they want to be heard, and we need to give them more opportunities to have direct impact on decisions that are being made on a weekly basis.
Next up, from the Weekly Rose, Daniel Mercado. Oh, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Crimson and Blue.
I don't think it's a surprise to anybody that Student Senate has had transparency issues for the last 2 to 3 years that they've been doing things. So that has inspired us to add into our infrastructure platform a monthly town hall with Student Senate, the media, and any concerned students that might have questions that they want to ask to their representative. This not only will increase transparency with the UDK, the Weekly Rose, the Pew Pecker, anybody that wants to ask questions, but also the students themselves. This makes us not only accountable and transparent to the media, but also the student body, giving them more of a voice and making sure that the representatives within Student Senate actually do their jobs and represent the students.
Next up, from the Weekly Rose, to ask the question, Daniel Mercado. Come up to the podium.
Oh, all right. It makes my job a lot easier. Marginalized students have been directly affected by living in student housing due to an increased amount of mold within student dorms. How will you advocate for students impacted by the mold issue in student housing?
Can everybody hear me? There we go. We keep getting lucky with these questions. This is another one of our platforms under student and campus safety. We're trying to put in priority tip lines in the dorms that not only will put mold concerns and like things like broken glass, anything that is a jeopardy to a student's life, those concerns will be put to the top of the tip line so that maintenance fulfills those requests before it fulfills something like, I don't know, like a squeaky door hinge or something that irritates you. We believe that students' lives, especially in the case of black mold that can affect their mental health, their physical health, as well as their academic success, need to be dealt with as quick as possible. So we believe that this priority tip line will allow that to happen.
Opportunity for Student Senate to more effectively use resolutions. For something like this, if we were to pass a resolution, it would be non-binding. But how are we able to make that not necessarily binding, but actually materialize? I think that you need to follow the incentive structure. Who benefits from the goals of what resolution you're trying to get into effect? For this example, I think the RAs are some people who have a little more sway than the students who are living in these buildings and are able and want to see this change happen and will communicate to those higher to them instead of just going directly to the top and expecting them to make a change.
Thank you, Daniel. Next up from the Pee Wee Pecker. Their intrepid editors are busy preparing their March issue as you speak, but they sent me a question to ask in their stead. A lot of students want to know your thoughts about the bill of impeachment filed this year. But at the Pecker, we are interested in the news that KU isn't ready to hear. Who is the first person, in or out of Senate, that you plan to impeach next year during your term? Would you like to go first?
Epler to come back for a 5th year so we can try to impeach him again.
On a more serious note, I don't think that the Crimson and Blue will advocate for impeaching anybody from office. I think that impeaching people from a position that they work so hard to get can be really disheartening, and I'm very against that. We both are very against that. I love Murga. He's great.
Who doesn't?
Okay. But yeah, we are very against impeachment, and I mean, I can't take away anyone's right to do so, but Shay and I will not be sponsoring any bills to do so or advocating for that.
Thank you, candidates. For those unaware, the Pee Wee Pecker is KU's #1 satirical newspaper on campus. We're going to move into the section for student questions. Again, this is one of your last chances to fill out that QR code. These ones were submitted before the debate, so I had an opportunity to put them into the PowerPoint. Because of the increasing presence of immigration and customs enforcement, many students are increasingly worried about their own safety and the safety of their families back home. There's also a chilling effect on public participation. Students have reported skipping classes. International students across the country have had visas revoked for engaging in campus politics. How will your administration advocate for these students and their families, and what resources will you develop for them? Either candidate from the coalitions is able to answer.
As I'm not an international student, I'm not directly tied and know what the effects of this looks like. But what I can say is that I'll have the conversations to understand their needs better and advocate for them. Additionally, right now, someone on our coalition, as well as some other students, are planning to meet with the chancellor next week to better understand the university's position on how these situations are being handled. And I think that kind of direct communication is incredibly important.
As a child of immigrants myself, immigration and protecting immigrants is something extremely important to me. So continuing that with handing out Know Your Rights cards so that when ICE, as they have been in Lawrence, come to our campus, a lot of students who are subject to this will be able to protect themselves. And then also creating a safe space where these students don't feel as though they are going to be harmed. I think creating a space where we can have these conversations, and then also asking them what they need from us. I think it's really hard to feel open in this space in a time like this when there's so much unknown. Um, so protecting international and immigrant students is something Shay and I are really passionate about.
Next question. Last year, the Student Senate passed a resolution recognizing the occupation of Palestine as a genocide. As conflict in the Middle East accelerates, what is KU's role in opposing the wars in Palestine and Iran?
Okay, there we go. Okay. I think it's once again important to realize that the perspective that KU Student Senate has and the effect that we have on international warfare. I think it's very difficult for us to reflect that. Like happened 2 years ago, we had an Israel-Palestine resolution. The Student Senate could put a resolution forth like that again. We have no control on whether they do so. And once again, and like I said, it's just out of Student Senate's bound to really have a role in affecting this war, but we will be supportive of the students no matter which side they stand on.
Be realistic on what we're actually doing here. We're not going to stop a war thousands of miles away from Alderson Auditorium. People in Topeka at our state legislature can't do that. People in Congress can hardly do that. I think that passing resolutions is great and protecting the students that are affected directly from this conflict is important. But I think we need to be realistic in realizing we're not going to stop this. It's going to go on whether we do anything or not.
Classrooms go from too hot one day to too cold the next. Staircases crumble and cockroaches run wild. With over $650 million in deferred maintenance, what is the most urgent infrastructure investment you believe KU needs?
As a part of our campaign is to work with dining services, we think it's incredibly important that dining services works, because I'm pretty sure we've all heard stories of cockroaches within dining facilities, within coffee grinders, within everything we eat out of, which I don't know about you guys, but that kind of scares me just a little bit. So as we're working with dining services and strengthening our communication with dining services, we believe that that's something we can advocate for, and it's something that is very important for the health of the student body.
I think that we need to focus where this deferred maintenance is coming from. Is this something that is posing a direct threat to the safety of our students? If so, I think those need to be directly attacked first. Something like a bad paint job isn't something that deferred maintenance should be spent on first. Finding the students who understand where these potentially dangerous areas are and looking to make change there first is the most important thing to do.
And for these sections, you can split your time between both candidates if both people want to speak. For the next question, students at Haskell and KU can attend courses at both universities through the KU Haskell Exchange. How will Student Senate collaborate with Haskell Student Senate?
Okay, sorry. We'll collaborate with Haskell in making those relationships. I think it's really important to have relationships with the university that is nearby and one that represents a high number of students. And I think having those relationships with people close and using their student senate with what they're doing and what we're doing and being able to exchange ideas is important, as well as we have a similar, we're in the same area is basically what I'm trying to say. So being able to collaborate with them and understand what action they're taking, and also implement that into things that we are working on.
With everything Haskell has going on right now, I would like to use our student senate to not only build up their student senate, but build up their student body and their university in general. I think we've done a great job of doing that by creating drives for them, like feminine product drives, food drives, but creating a collaborative student government with them would be great to kind of exchange ideas in ways that would be able to not help them get out of the situation they're in, as it is not their fault, but maybe help aid in the situation and remedy it in the best way we can.
The vast majority of students have never been to Alderson or the Senate office. How do you plan to meet students where they are at, both in their informal groups and formal organizations? Good.
So I'm a part of a lot of organizations, and I think that we have, outside of me being a part of Senate, I don't see any Senate involvement in those organizations. So I think just like a simple email or even just having a representative from Senate come to an event. Our events are really fun. So just getting involved in a way that isn't come and get funding from us is really important. I think that that relationship is really transactional and it doesn't build a good rapport. So having kind of a more fun relationship is something that I'm hoping we can have with several organizations across campus next year.
Things that I really enjoyed in my role as treasurer is getting to talk with student organizations on a daily basis. I have a little bit better understanding now, much better than when I started, of what their needs look like and some of the difficulties that they face. I think having continued open dialogue with those student organizations and collaborating on things like a shared calendar that we send out to the students so that these organizations can publicize their events much easier so that more students will come and participate in these organizations. Additionally, meeting students where they're at, I think, is another thing that the Digital Student Resource Hub will do quite well compared to something like a town hall or like a meeting, something like that, because they literally have to come to you to voice their concerns. Once again, for something like a town hall, when the Digital Student Resource Hub, we're meeting them where they're at because they could be at home, in class, anything, and they have a direct line of communication to us.
Now, from questions submitted to the forum, both during and before the debate, both coalitions have been in Senate before. What is the policy that you are most proud of in your work on Senate?
Okay, so something that I'm really proud of that I did this year was a bill passed to get rid of the fact that organizations cannot have a GPA requirement to obtain funding. I think that at the university level, there is a GPA requirement to stay here. It's a 2.0 GPA. And though that's really small, a lot of these organizations only have a 2.0 GPA requirement or a 2.5 GPA requirement, and they were not able to obtain funding for that reason. So it seemed kind of hypocritical to me in that sense. So now that that is removed from our constitution, a lot of organizations have been coming and we've been receiving a lot more funding requests from these organizations. And I think that's building a lot of more student engagement because they're able to throw the events that they want to throw because now they have the funding to do so. And I'm really proud of that because it's able to help these organizations sustain themselves in a more in a better way.
Particular piece of legislation that I'm most proud of from my work this year. It's the entirety of the body of work in my sponsoring over 80 funding bills, getting funding to over 50 different student organizations directly through $32,000 worth of Wednesday night funding, as well as the back end fulfillment side with nearly $60,000 worth of line item funding. I don't think it's fair to pick a particular group that I enjoyed emailing back and forth with the most, but I enjoyed getting to communicate with all the clubs and help them fund their events and have good events for their students.
How does each coalition plan to increase graduate student representation in Senate and on Senate committees?
Our coalition is actively in talks with students at both the law school and the pharmacy school, and we're hoping to increase representation for both of those schools within Senate. Right now, we're struggling to get a law school representative to run for the next year. So that is a main priority for our campaign, to make sure that school of about 300 to 400 people is well represented next year. Pharmacy school is doing good, but alongside that, we're getting better relations with the graduate students, because for the past 3 to 4 year graduate relations with Student Senate hasn't been the best, just because there is not enough representation within Senate for graduate students. Alongside that, graduate students do not understand that Senate is the entity that represents them alongside undergraduate students. So making sure that graduate students, understand that they have channels to go through in Student Senate to get representation and to share the issues they're concerned with, and B, to create spaces in the Student Senate where they can actively and efficiently make sure those issues are known.
I agree with Shay's point. I think representation is a really important thing to have from the graduate side, and having more involved senators. From the graduate perspective, they don't see a whole lot of benefit from Student Senate, not a whole lot of reason why to come in and interact with Student Senate. But one piece of legislation that's currently in the works, sponsored by Tanya Singh, is allowing graduate student organizations who often have higher costs associated with their education and extracurriculars to come in for Wednesday night funding, even if they do have a due or fee requirement. And I think that's one way to have a little attraction and reason for them to come in and begin interacting with Student Senate. And from there, I think we can grow that relationship.
Just this morning, KU ratified a historic contract with its faculty union. How will you work with the union in shared governance to promote the values of both faculty and students in front of the administration?
I think faculty plays a surprisingly important role in Student Senate, despite not being directly represented within the organization. We have faculty advisors within Student Senate, and every club that receives funding through Student Senate has a faculty mentor or a point of contact that supports them. Without faculty, both student organizations and Student Senate would not exist. And I think this is a relationship that us students and admin take advantage of and forget more than not. So within our coalition, we plan to strengthen ties with faculty, make sure that they are represented just as much as the student body and as much as student clubs, because without faculty, this university would not run. Without faculty, we would not have a student senate, and without faculty, we would have no student engagement or involving to be talking about today.
That it's pretty clear to see that a stronger faculty makes a stronger KU for the students. There are countless ways this labor organization directly affects students, but I think one parallel that's kind of easy to visualize is that faculty working conditions are student learning conditions. And I think that it's a really good thing for faculty to have a part of shared governance, but the role of student body president is to ensure that the students have a share in this governance as well. I want to make sure that we have a seat at that table, because it's the students who are paying the tuition that go into funding those budgets that the faculty now have shared governance in deciding on.
How will your coalition advocate to make campus more accessible for students with disabilities, both accommodations and physical accessibility?
I think at the campus's current state, it is not accessible enough. So advocating for students who need disabilities or have disabilities, we would first go and take polls maybe. I think asking them what they need, because we can't assume. I think assuming is the reason why a lot of things don't get done, or a lot of things that students don't actually need get done instead of what they actually need. So asking these students what they would like to see changed, maybe adding ramps. I know there's not a lot of ramps on campus. I think there's one by the union that I've seen, and maybe that's all. And then, Shay, do you have something?
And just to add on to that, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at the wheelchair path to get from somewhere like Lot 90 to the top of the hill. They have to walk, I want to say double, but I want to say double, but triple the distance to get to their classes. I once had a student in one of my classes in Blake who had to use the elevator and Anschutz to get on top of the hill, meaning he had to not only walk up from lot 90, but also go from one end of Jayhawk Boulevard all the way to the other. We are not only disenfranchising these disabled students, but we are also negatively affecting their life, their education, because of the fact that we do not have great accessibility for physically disabled students. They struggle to get to class, they struggle to go to office hours, they struggle to participate in extracurricular activities. We are actively doing them a disservice. Alongside that, students with mental disabilities, when it comes to actual class accommodations for them, KU also struggles with this. We have heard concerns from students with anxiety, ADHD about test accommodations not fulfilling their needs accurately. So, like Amara said, creating a poll and seeing what students actually need and what they actually want is the most important priority before we act.
Just in time.
I also agree with what they said. And starting and taking a poll, seeing what these students need and what they want is very important. And putting the pressure and bringing these problems to the faculty and to the administration and putting the pressure on them, because this is a problem, an issue that affects our students' daily life. And if it's making them harder for them to get to class, get to study, and to see their friends, anything that is on campus, if it makes it harder for them, that is a negative connotation of their KU experience. So that needs to be flipped. So bringing the pressure and the attention to any faculty or administration and making this like an urgent problem, because it is, because these students aren't represented adequately.
Just to add on for a second, I think that it's hard enough to go to class already, to get up and study. I think that we need to lower these barriers by diagnosing specific areas, specific high traffic areas where we can make a change in real ways. Diagnosing the problem and saying that it exists isn't a solution. Finding a couple key areas in high traffic places where these problems persist is going to be the best solution.
2 years ago, KU Student Senate passed a resolution for a Green New Deal on campus. What will you do to follow up on many of the initiatives in that resolution?
With this year, recycling services has received a decrease in funding. And while there are reasons for that the fee review committee thought were prevalent, it is a priority of our campaign to make sure we have a green campus. 2 years ago, that was a major priority of the entire Student Senate. And the years progressing after that, it has become less and less. This is half because of inefficiencies within the recycling services and half because the advocates that wanted these recycling services to be better have graduated from Student Senate. So to increase and I guess fulfill the tenets of the Green New Deal that we passed, we want to work with recycling services to find a way to make them operable in the dorms, because they say due to student activity, it is hard to, I guess, recycle and keep the recycling clean and non-contaminated within the dorms. So working with recycling is the best way to establish the Green New Deal and its core tenets within our campus.
Legislation was passed before I came into Senate, and I am not going to pretend that I know the details of this bill or what it exactly outlines. But I think that once again, we need to follow the incentive structure. I think that for something like recycling, instead of sending a letter directly to the head of KU Recycling, you talk to the workers, you talk to the managers, and you find people within these organizations where by having the resolution go through, their lives will become better and they want to see this change. And as they're involved in this organization every day, they have a much stronger sway when it comes to talking to the heads of these organizations.
Many students have asked about the controversy surrounding basketball tickets. What can you do as student body president to oversee athletics and make basketball tickets more fair?
That once again, it might be slightly out of the scope because Student Senate cannot directly affect the functionings of athletics. We can submit resolutions and urge them to make sure that their system is as fair as possible, make sure there's no tampering by staff or anything that has come up this year. But like I said, slightly out of the scope, and as much as we can do, we can try to advocate, but we have no direct impact.
I second what Shay said. I mean, if this is a question of ticket prices, the student section gets filled out. So and at the end of the day, it's supply and demand for the tickets that determine the pricing, and setting them lower for students is what we already do. But if we're talking about camping groups, then I think that when there is cheating and calling out false numbers of the ping pong balls or poker chips or whatever gets drawn out of a hat and saying that it's a higher number than it actually is, whoever was doing that needs to be kicked out and not get a cheater in the role.
What is the role of homecoming in connecting students to the campus?
Fun week. We brought it back this year at a smaller scale. There was flag football tournament and some other things that I got to participate in. I had a turf burn for about a week following that tournament. But I think that it's a great way for students to engage with other students across campus that they might not interact with on a daily basis. Additionally, it's a great opportunity to engage with alumni. I think the alumni come back in droves for homecoming, and it's really run through the alumni administration. And with homecoming, the homecoming parade coming back this year, I think it'll be much more done at a much larger scale and with much more involvement than we've seen in years past.
Along with our Campus Life platform, one of our main focuses with that was to continue the efforts to solidify homecoming as a yearly tradition. Andrew and Henry this year have put a lot of work into establishing the first homecoming, and we want to make sure that that effort isn't wasted. And that means we work with staff, faculty, the Alumni Association, and student groups to make sure that homecoming is better and more fun and continuing year and year. So like we said at the beginning of this debate, we want clubs to have a place where they can have fun and be students without having to focus on recruiting people or surviving. And homecoming is one of the places that gives students that time to just be students and have fun and meet new people. And we want to keep that place, I guess, sacred.
As we all know, Senate has an image problem. There's always accusations that Greek life overpowers a lot of the voices in Senate and that Senate isn't responsive to the students. What will you do to better Senate's image and engage more with the student body?
Well, as two people who are not involved in Greek life, we are very big advocates about not letting Greek life voices overpower the voices of the majority of the students on campus. I think it's a really big deal that we take the voices of the students who are marginalized and don't have as much representation, don't have as much funding, and use their voices as well as those of Greek life. I don't think we need to demonize those who are in Greek life or make them feel less than for wanting to join an organization. But I think it's necessary that we balance the voices of both of these groups. And make everyone feel as though they are equally heard. And I understand why certain people would feel as though their voice is not as heard as others.
Now, I don't have the exact percentage of what percentage of student senate is made up of people involved in Greek life, but I'm almost certain that it is less than their total population of the student body. Greek students make up a massive chunk of the student body, and they tend to go together. They're connected in some way, and I think that they often go together and are very active. Now, I think that reaching out to the students who aren't involved is incredibly important, and they should have a voice, and they should have a way to get their questions, concerns submitted to those who are in positions to make those changes. But to say that they have an overrepresented position within Student Senate, I don't believe to be true.
How will you increase Student Senate's presence on campus and image in the broader community? To follow up on that.
As Amara said earlier, we are hoping that Both Senate exec as well as legislative leaders will show up to the community events that we fund, because we think it is incredibly important to not only provide the funds for these events and the resources to put them on, but also to show that we actually care about the students we're funding. I think a lot of organizations see Senate as simply a cash grab, which we have been functioning as. We give people money and we leave them alone. But that doesn't establish actual relationships with these student groups, and it doesn't put Student Senate in a nice human light. I think it's incredibly important that student senators go to these events, have fun with people outside of Student Senate, and actually make connections that will foster greater exchanges between community clubs, Greek life, and every other organization besides Senate.
Problem is a tricky one to fix, and it starts by building up trust through making decisions that best represent what the student body wants. I mean, directly acting in their best interest is what we need to do more consistently year after year to prove that Senate's image should be in a higher position than where it is. Now, connecting with students who aren't involved, I think, is a great question. Ava, since you weren't involved, you want to?
I think that's part of the main reason why I'm running, is to bridge that gap that I know I feel and a lot of other students who are not involved in Student Senate feel. So being able to bridge that gap. And so working with Charlie and seeing his insight and then also hearing what I have to say, we're able to, I don't want to say compromise, but meet somewhere in the middle where we hear both sides of the story instead of just a one-sided story. We're able to open our eyes and see the bigger vision and the wider range of people that it's affecting.
And just one last thing before we finish up. Trust is something that's built over a long, long period of time and can be lost in an instant.
Our last question from students: what are your plans for State Higher Ed Day?
Okay, we're on. There we go. This was a priority 2 years ago under Estabine and the Dominic administration. They wanted to create student voice on KBOR, and that is through a student seat on KBOR. It was extremely difficult logistically, and it was extremely difficult in terms of the process. But over the course of this year, I have been talking to state legislators about getting a seat for a student on KBOR, and lots of them have reached out to me, excited about submitting that legislation for the next session. So I'm extremely, extremely excited for Higher Ed Day, because that will give us a chance to not only, I guess, show off the fact that we finally got a bill up to the legislature, but it will also help us solidify the impact of that bill, make sure that bill passes, and give Student Senate a voice on the highest educational body in this state.
Yeah, I think she had a great point there. And then State Higher Ed Day just happened a month or two ago, and we were there advocating for scholarship money. I think this was a decision that was made up within KBOR and with the other presidents from the universities around Kansas. Now, I think that we have plenty of time to think about what we want to advocate for, but I think we also need to realize that we're not the only university in the state of Kansas. State Higher Ed Day involves every university around the state of Kansas, and we should take their voices into account. If they have an idea they feel passionate about and we can get behind, there's no reason not to use theirs. Good ideas are good ideas.
This next section we introduced 2 years ago to the debate. Each coalition will have the opportunity to ask another one question. Starting with Ad Astra, your question for Crimson and Blue.
Major platforms are initiatives that have already either been accomplished or will be completed regardless of who's elected. This includes Safe Ride, which got a 200% increase in funding and established a Safe Ride subcommittee. Homecoming parade's already coming to be scheduled, and 2 brand new parking lots are set to begin construction once the school year ends. What else do you hope to accomplish on these platforms that have received so much attention in the last year?
I think each academic year we take for granted all of the progress that we've made. Student Senate is an organization that is constantly shifting in terms of leadership, membership, and initiatives. And so whenever we make progress one year, it always backslides the next. That is why a lot of our campaign priorities are to continue the progress that we're making this year, so that Next year, we have the homecoming parade and we have Safe Ride. And in the years following that, Safe Ride can be better funded by the local government in case fee review decides, hey, we don't need it anymore. All of our priorities are either to continue what has already been happening to make sure it is happening better and I guess better and more efficiently than ever before, as well as safeguard our initiatives for the years after. I think a lot of presidents run into the fallacy that they are going to make this impact and it is going to last. And for the past 4 years, that has not been the case. We have made it a priority amongst our coalition to make sure that we make changes that last year after year and benefit students that happen, I guess, when we're gone.
Crimson and Blue, your question for Ed Astra.
So my question just is, have you guys seen the detrimental effects of the use of AI? And at the university level, with thousands of students using AI and advocating for the use of AI, do you think that that is the best course of action considering how detrimental it can be to the environment and to marginalized communities?
Yeah, I think that it's a great question, one that should be asked. AI does use a lot of power, which has a lot of negative externalities that on the environment. Now, I think that there's not a big chance that we develop this completely in-house. It's very likely that we'll partner with an existing AI company and train it on our university-specific data. Now, when finding that partner, I think it's incredibly important to find where their power comes from and what the negative effects might be in creating a good partnership there. Now, I think that there is bound to be some negative effect in a lot of power use, and students are already using AI. And I think that it's ignorant to ignore the problem and hope it goes away. AI, whether we like it or not, is not going away, and it's something that we need to address, or we risk falling behind as a university and put our students in a bad position to go into the workforce without having the knowledge and background on AI that will be needed when we all go into the workforce.
We're now going to move into closing statements. Ad Astro will begin again, and Crimson and Blue will have the final word.
Everyone who joined us here tonight throughout this debate. Ava and I hope we made one thing clear. We're running because we deeply care about KU, and we believe student government should work better for the students that it represents. This campaign is not about slogans, appearances. It's about whether student government will be engaged, effective, and focused on delivering real results. It's about whether students feel more connected to the people elected to represent them. And it's about whether we're willing to take on meaningful challenges with focus, responsibility, and a clear path to follow through on. That is why our campaign is built around 3 priorities: expanding and modernizing the REC, strengthening student engagement, and creating smarter student support systems. These aren't random ideas. Together, they reflect the kind of student government we want to build, one that improves campus life in visible ways, connects more directly with the students that it represents, and prepares KU for the future instead of settling for where things are now. I decided to run because I believe this role is about service. Over the last year, I had the opportunity to serve as treasurer, and this showed me both what student government can accomplish and where it still has room to improve. I've seen how important thoughtful leadership and strong execution can be, especially when students are trusting you to represent their interests. Ava and I also know that no 2 student experiences at KU are exactly the same. This is why good leadership cannot be only about speaking to the most involved students or the people that are already heard. It has to be about listening broadly, leading responsibly, and making sure student government is reaching the students where they're at. At the end of the day, this election is about trust. It's about who students believe will listen, will work hard, and will approach this role with the level of care it deserves. Ava and I are ready to do that work. We're ready to serve, ready to lead, and ready to help KU move forward. We would be honored to have the opportunity to earn your trust and support. And I want to thank you all again for coming to this debate or joining us on the live stream. This level of engagement and participation is incredibly encouraging and shows just another reason why KU is such a special place. I hope everyone has a great rest of your evening and a safe weekend. Rock chalk.
Okay, I want to first thank everybody for being here today and everybody watching on the live stream. This is a privilege to be sitting on the stage next to our competitors. It is a privilege to have the opportunity to represent the student body and speak to them. I would like to start this closing statement with one fact. The University of Kansas has 30,000 students. The average amount of students involved is around 5,000. 25,000 students in our campus who are not involved on the campus or in student activities or in student senate itself go unrepresented, unnoticed, and unspoken for. That is the belief behind this coalition, and that is the motivation behind this coalition. We want to speak for the students that do not speak for themselves because they do not have time, because they have family commitments, because they have jobs. Like Charlie said, lots of the campus is overrepresented by the students that are most involved. We need to speak for the people who are not. So with that, our coalition has 3 platforms. The first is Campus Life, where we continue with the homecoming parade, establish an end of the year festival, and implement a 24/7 coffee shop in the underground. This will make sure that the people that are represented on campus, the most influential, the ones in clubs and on student senate and who come to campus and spend their lives on campus are represented and are able to have fun in their home. Next, we have infrastructure where we have Senate Reformation, monthly roundtables with the UDK and other media, as well as food plan scholarships. This is where we speak for the students that cannot speak for themselves, the students that are having financial troubles that can't afford food, the students that feel unrepresented because we don't have good disability services. This is how students can talk to us and feel represented through the roundtables, as well as we can support students with the food plans so they can't so we can support students that are financially struggling with the food plan so they at least have one less worry on their plate. Finally, we have campus safety. With the Safe Ride program being in such flux year after year, and the fact that we take advantage of our successes so much that they get rolled back the next, we need to provide stable funding so students like international students, financially troubled students, students that simply don't have a car, can get transportation and get to their campus. It is important that we represent every student on campus, and that is what our coalition is set out to do.
Thank you again all for being here tonight and taking the time to listen to all of us. I think something that's easy to forget is student government isn't just about policies and meetings. It's about people. It's about whether students feel like they belong here, whether they feel supported, and whether they feel like their voice actually matters. That's what this campaign is really about for me. Over the course of tonight, you've heard a lot of ideas, and I think ideas are important. What matters more is how those ideas are carried out. It's consistency, communication, and accountability. It's making sure that when decisions are made, students are informed and they understand them. It's making sure people feel included before those decisions are made and not just after the fact. I'm not running because I think everything is broken. I'm running because I think there's a real opportunity to make things better. Better communication, better access to resources, a student government that feels more connected to the body of people that it represents. I bring in a different point of view, one that's grounded in listening, in understanding, and in thinking about the student body as a whole. When you combine me and Charlie's experience, it creates a team that is both informed and forward thinking. At the end of the day, this truly isn't about us. It's about you. It's about your experience here, your time at KU, and what you want to take away from it. If given the opportunity, we are committed to showing up, doing the work, and make sure students feel seen, heard, and represented. Student government should work for the students, and we are ready to make sure that it does. Thank you.
Okay, Shay said everything so beautifully, so I'm just going to say a couple more things. Thank you guys for staying engaged and being here today. We hope that our initiatives make you feel represented, and Shay and I will use your trust and your support to build a better campus. Thank you.
If you are interested in running for Student Senate, there is 1 hour left to declare your candidacy for Student Senator. Visit studentsenate.ku.edu/elections. Ballots open April 6th at 9 a.m. and they close that following Thursday at April 9th. Make sure you vote. Thank you and rock chalk.